Hello and via live. I'm your host, Christian Fisher. We at the Disruptive Chef Entrepreneur Show. And I know I say this at every episode, but I have some really amazing people for our listeners today. But before we get started, hello, everybody. My name is Christian. I'm the Disruptive Chef Entrepreneur host. I'm joined today by one of the most amazing people giving things voice, Mr. Chris Cummins. He's a 7-time TEDx talker. And then we have a really special guest calling in from the beautiful state of Tennessee. Not only has he a strong background in hospitality, which he actually built into a multi-million-dollar brand. He's an amazing human being, and he's really good in what he does. Not only is he good in building businesses, he's also good in something else, and he's going to talk to us about that in a little bit. So with that, thanks, everybody. Mr. Cummins, thanks for being on our show from the beautiful country of Canada. So we officially international today. So everybody, thanks for welcoming us to our international show. And then we have Mr. Clint. So Chris, you are on top of my screen here. Why don't you give our listeners a 2-minute cliff note who you are and what you do?
2-minute cliff note on who I am and what I do. Well, I like to say I'm a recovering speaker, but I've been giving speeches full time for 20 years now. And Christian, as you know, I'm really passionate about the spoken word and showing up well in this environment and showing up well on stages. And so a big passion of mine these days is helping entrepreneurs become better presenters, more persuasive, increase conversions, become sort of better at building relationships, creating rapport, building trust in order to persuade. And whether that's leaders at large organizations with their town halls, helping them communicate a message to their team, or it's entrepreneurs selling to the masses. It's something that I've learned over the last 20 years, and I'm really enjoying sharing with others now.
It's absolutely amazing. And Chris has been on the show before. And actually, I looked, you are ranked number 2 in our show. You had 46,000 listeners so far. So Chris, thanks for being here today.
It's a privilege to be here. Thanks for having me, Christian.
And Chris is also one of the individuals. I sneak myself into his calendar periodically, and he hasn't banned me yet. And I set a 15-minute appointment. And we talked for 2 hours. And you know what the amazing thing is? I look at, I snuck in yesterday. I had 2.5-ish pages of notes just with the conversations I had with Chris. And you guys hear me say this all the time. Everybody needs a Chris. So with that, Mr. Clint, tell everybody who you are, what you do, how come you got out of hospitality, and you're in a way still in hospitality. Talk to everybody who Mr. Clint Nobles is and what you do today.
Thank you so much, Christian. It's such an honor to be here, really. And this is a pantheon of excellence, right? You get Chris Cummins, Christian Fisher. I'm really honored to be here. I come from hospitality. I started when I was 19 years old from my family's business. They ran a fruit market, which sounds like a truck on the side of the road, but we actually had a building and sold trees and stuff. But I went into restaurants and started from ground floor and worked up to the C-suite. And I loved every inch of it. Every inch of hospitality, because of the change that you can make in someone's life, right? Vance, my wife, ran a home care business, incredible home care business. And she grew it. It grew fast. She came to me one day and was like, I need somebody in operations. I was like, funny story. I actually am an operational methodologist. That's what I do, right? And she said, well, that's great. We'll pray about it. And which, if anybody is in the South, right, you pray about it means heck no. But God and I had already talked. So we already knew it was good. So I come to her and was like 24 hours later and was like, I just turned in my resignation. I'm not renewing my contract. And in 30 days, we're full-time family business, right? And so I exited the world of hospitality, which I had known and loved for near on 15 plus years, and entered this entirely new world of home care. Going in people in seniors' homes, helping them, dementia, Parkinson's, all these things, ALS. And what I realized in this transition, and when you apply business principles to your life, to your marriage, to your family, when you understand what it means to grow, and that growth isn't just monetary, it's who I am as a person. When you apply that to your life, there is no limit. There's no industry, right? Because it's beyond industry. It goes into humanity. And humanity doesn't have limits. So over the years, we have built this business, and now we are blessed to have a third iteration of this, that we have grown, and we now have the largest network of home care owners in the nation, over 13,000 that we speak to weekly. And we coach and teach these owners how to empower their teams, create streamlined operations, simplify success, and create growth without overwhelm so they can scale their businesses while exiting daily operations.
It's absolutely amazing. And for me, every time he tells this story, for me, I don't make notes. I get really upset because it makes me feel like I'm not doing anything. I feel like I need to work a little bit harder, get up a little earlier, maybe stay in the office a little bit later, because it's amazing of the stuff he gets done in just a day. So yeah, let's go around the room a little bit, because one of
Can I
the
comment on something that I just heard Clint say? Clint, that's one of the things I really enjoy about you as a person is your growth mindset, right? You're ever improving. It's not as though I think a lot of people in our society, the last book they read was in high school or college, and then they're done learning, right? And what I really enjoy in this life is hanging out with people like you, Christian, and you, Clint, with a growth mind. Every day, let's learn. Let's get just a little bit better today than I was yesterday. And, you know, whatever. This year, Chris needs to be better than last year, Chris, at a whole bunch of stuff. And I would suggest that not everyone has that mindset. And those that don't wonder why they can't grow a business or wonder why they're having such a difficult run in life. And you don't understand. Like, you know what? Well, when was the last time you learned? When was the last time you hung out with someone else who was smarter than you, doing bigger things than you? I feel the same way as Christian just said, Clint. When you and I speak, I'm so in awe of what you are able to do as far as taking what's in your mind and creating. Creating might even be the wrong word. Implementing, actioning, and then building a team around that. I think the home care business is very fortunate to have you. And anybody watching this, whether it's in your audience, in the restaurant and hospitality space, this growth mindset, man, that's what Clint espouses, and that's how he's grown so much.
I love that, because one of the reasons we hosting this show is we want to bring new thinkers, people which think differently, and disrupt the industry. And for me, Clint is the perfect example. The thing we was talking about, that in the culinary industry or hospitality industry, people think that's all they can do. They all have transferable skills. And for me, if I think of transferable skills, and not just did you transfer, you scaled. And building a multi-million-dollar piece of business out of that is absolutely amazing. So where did that come from, besides Jessica pushing you to do it? But where did Clint develop that learner's mindset Chris talked about?
My dad is probably one of the most influential people in my life. And he actually taught me years ago that influence is better than visibility. Always strive to be influential, right? So that growth mindset comes from watching my dad take all the knowledge that he had from a 6th grade education that he had to drop out of school to take care of his mom, who had a nervous breakdown, his dad, who had gotten paralyzed and through a stroke for a period of time. And he was the youngest of 8 kids. Nobody else was there. And he had to drop out of school, get a job, and he worked his whole life. My mom, from a teenager, had to completely care for her entire family because her mom wasn't there. They lived a life of production and work. And I watched them take the business that we took over. My dad bought this business from this guy. It wasn't working. He bought a business. He was a minister, knew nothing about running a business. Bought a business. We moved to a brand new city, and he took this business and he worked. And he did the only thing that him and mom knew how to do, was work. So they worked, and they built a business that produced at the height of it, $130,000 a year, which was unheard of. We wrote the rules for fruit markets in the area. Walmart set their prices based on what our business was doing. It was incredible to watch this man develop this. And I always get emotional doing this. And Chris, I'll have to learn your techniques of like keeping this in. But I watched him build this, and I watched him bear in his body the marks of success. And then at the end of the day, They were the only ones that could run it. They didn't hire anybody else because they couldn't keep them. They didn't know how to train. They didn't have systems. They didn't have process. All they had was them. And at the end of the day, they were left holding this fatherless child of surrender, which is called regret. And every day he told me, learn, be better. And so literally as a kid, as I learned how to write, I would find myself daydreaming. I look down at the paper and it'd say grow. And I had written grow over and over and over, and still to this day. So that was ingrained in me. And then when I watched and I got in business, I realized that growth was a human capital. And I watched that the people that worked for me, flipping burgers, making barbecue, right? I was a pit master at a barbecue restaurant. And all these people were doing this, and they thought that's all they had. But if I could show the dishwasher how the excellence that he brought to his job translated to a leadership role, then maybe he didn't have to hope his friend could drive him to work because he was creating a life beyond. Growth, it's not just a mindset to me, it's a responsibility. I believe we are put on this earth by the divine for greatness. And if we do not help someone find the greatness in them, then at the end of it, I've failed in my commission.
I absolutely love that. How are you feeling about this, Chris? Now I'm even more depressed of the story you just told me.
You're funny, Christian. I love how like you're such an incredible person and multi-line business owner, and you look at what other people are doing, like, I'm not doing enough. I think what's fun is when the three of us gather, whether it's in a podcast format or not, each of us thinks that we're the loser.
I'm always like, I gotta step up. Every time I get off and I talk to Jessica, and I'm like, man,
I gotta step
like,
it up. I'm not doing enough. These guys are killing it.
So, truth be told to our listeners, we all belong to the same mastermind. And every time Clint shares of what he got done, I just feel like I throw in the towel and just move back to Austria because I feel like I got nothing done. And not only when he executes on it, he did a live event. If you guys haven't checked out Home Care Ops, you guys got to check it out. The amazing things he does. So he did this show, and I was like, I want to just check him out for a few minutes. We were in there 3 hours, and we were like, look at the guy. He's effing amazing at it. Look, and he's looking good. Did he shave his beard? Yeah, he looks amazing. I hate him even more. And then I hated it so much I watched him 3 hours. He became my Howard Stern. Everybody said they hate Howard Stern, but they want to listen to see what he says next. And so I'm sitting here for 3 hours. I was like, I've been working at this for 4 years. This guy's a freaking natural. I'm done. I go back flipping burgers, and I tried on my old uniforms because I was like, this is not for me. And then Chris made fun of it earlier because when I talk to Chris and we hang up, I walk around the corner where my team is, they're saying, oh my God, Chris is amazing. I was like, he's amazing. And I go, like everybody else, I go in the bathroom and cry by myself. And
that's what the cooler's for, Christian.
But I feel like this all the time. The day we had a conversation and Clint shares and then Chris shares, and I was like, I don't think we have done enough. I drop a ball somewhere and I'm adding up. Did I fuck up somewhere? I thought we did pretty good. But it's amazing. And I want to pivot this conversation a little bit because how often do you get around VP? By the way, us three, we never met in person, but I consider these two guys my friends. And if I have a question around how I want to scale my speaking or how I want to come across in this video, the guy which started this podcast 100 episodes back is not the same guy you see today. And that's all thanks to Chris, because he makes it look amazing. It really does. He's so good at it. And for me, I would sit here and it says, I have this guy. I need to connect Chris with this guy. I need to connect Chris. I need to talk to Clint. He needs to do this. Because how often do you guys run into people where you feel the way we do about us here? Because we started a conversation, truth be told, 3.5 hours ago. And, my dog had to go pee twice, feed his kids. Clint had to get takeout for his family to eat, and we still are here. But how often do you meet people where you feel that connection? I think this is more than just connection.
I can tell you very rarely for me, and the level of integrity that you two bring is the reason that I have to be a part, right? It's like, I don't, it's not about getting to be a part. It's that I have to be because it's a filling station for me. Yeah. How about you, Chris?
I like the filling station analogy.
Yeah.
There's some people that, what is that phrase? Everyone everyone makes you, what is it? Everyone makes you feel great. Some when they enter the room and some when they leave.
Yeah.
So I'm butchering it, but you know the sentiment,
Yeah.
right? That there are some people that it doesn't feel like work to be near, to hang out with, share ideas with. And there aren't that many people in the world, I would argue, that are very comfortable celebrating your wins.
Mhm.
Even if, I mean, Clint, when you tell me you did something great, and Christian, I know you say, "Oh, I hate the guy." Well, that's in good fun. Like, it's important to surround yourself with people who are happy for you,
Yeah.
who want to see you succeed. Because I've found a lot of people in the world, they don't want to see. Well, if you succeed and I don't, that makes me a loser. So I'm just going to pull you back down to where you belong. Thank you very much. So
Yeah.
I think it's really important that
I
you find people who will celebrate you.
I
And
I love that.
help.
And for me, when you step back a few hours ago as we started this whole thing, Clint plays in this space. So he comes from hospitality, built this successful business, and he lays out, "Oh, I created this assessment piece. It's only 48 pages. It's amazing." I was like, how the fuck did he do that? I wouldn't even know where to start. And then he says, "Oh, and then I built this AI machine to overlay and do it." I'm just, I don't know, I got to go home and kick the dog because, it's just how. And then he says, "Oh, I have this thing and I overlay and I build it." I was like, my fucking brain doesn't think like that. I honestly, it's amazing how you do that. And not only is it amazing to watch, you make it sound so simple because in your mind, you have it done. I think your hands are catching up to your brain, because you have it figured out before you even told us what you did. And for me, I absolutely love that about you and admire that about you, because for me, I'm a big picture guy. And for me, I make a joke. I call it all the time, I need to be more like Clint. I know you and I talk about it, but in my notes I do. Because Clint has this thing where he breaks things down a little bit. Always to the little things, because if you can't manage this, you can't manage that. And I feel the same thing when I talk to Chris, because Chris, the very first conversation we had, we were in the other room and he says, "Tell me your story." In Chris fashion. And I kind of, "What did you just say?" And then we were done. He says, "I have 2 pages of notes." I was like, oh my God, this guy took notes on me. I need to step it up. And so I started taking notes thanks to Chris. And not only that, he says, "Oh, I think if you say this way, I think it has a lot more powerful message to the listeners." And I was like, how the heck does he do that? It's just,
You actually had never told them one of those stories, because you were saying, "I did this, then I did that," and I don't know, it's something like, "I bumped into a wall and then I tripped on a skateboard," and I'm like, whoa, skateboard? It doesn't matter. It was just a skateboard. No. That's a whole keynote. What are you talking about? Right? And I'm like, just here, start it off with this. Don't start there. Start off here. Here, describe this, and then walk us through that. I remember your face. You were kind of like, what just happened?
and for me, again, I sneak into Chris's calendar for a half-hour conversation. 2 hours later, he says, "I really got to go." And I was supposed to go 6 minutes ago because my daughter got just a really important award and I really need to be there, And I treasure that because for me, I think there's nothing more important than the gift of time. And, every time I get to spend time with you guys, I learn a ton of it. Even today, I have already 1 3/4 pages of notes. Because every time you guys talk, you drop those little nuggets which seem insignificant to you. But I was like, oh, I love the way he said this. I love how he kind of brought it together. So for our listeners, how do you think they can build those relationships to find their Chris, to find their Clint, to do and help them in what they do?
Pick me.
Oh, yes, you. Yes, sir.
Unless, Clint, you want to go first.
Not at all.
Show up, attend the thing, and just help. It's quite amazing. Without an agenda, right? And I think both of you are very good at this. Is probably one of the many reasons I enjoy hanging out with you. If we hadn't chosen to show up at certain events, we wouldn't have met one another, right?
Yeah.
Mhm.
So I would say to anyone who's consuming this content today, like, find places where you can just go show up and meet, ideally, new people, right? But more importantly, there was an interesting book I read. It was Tim Cork wrote the 3 G's of leadership. And I was like, oh, I need to know what the 3 G's are. Maybe it's the 5 G's of leadership. I'll tell you what they are. They're give. It's so one of them, he says, stop networking. I was like, oh, okay, I'm listening. Like, what do you mean stop networking? That's like germane to the meeting of people. And he said, no. Remove the word networking from your vocabulary. I want you to replace it with the word net giving. be the only person at a networking event not talking about themselves and trying to take, do you have any money? Is my money ready yet? Do you know anybody that's got money that I can have money? Can I take from you? Right? Instead of being that person, be the net giver, be the person, the only person at a networking event who's not trying to sell themselves, the only person at a networking event who's asking questions about other people and trying to help them get what they want. And then be the connector. So how do you build those relationships? Show up and practice the net giving piece. Just give value, man. Go make other people's lives and businesses better. And guess what? Karma's amazing. My wife and I call it making deposits to the karma bank. You know, how can we get that thing for free? I made another deposit to the karma bank. One day we'll probably have to make a withdrawal. We'll see.
I absolutely love that. That's why we dropped in our disclaimer. This is not a podcast. What Chris just did is he just dropped the masterclass. So Chris, thanks for sharing that. How about for you, Clint? How do you build that? How do you make that work?
So I love what Chris is talking about in the giving and the showing up, but I think in process, I think in systems, and sometimes for some of us out there, showing up is the scariest thing in the world. And if you've been in the hospitality, especially in the hospitality industry, there you have FOH and BOH, right? There's two different roles: front of house, back of house. And back of house, they don't deal with the shit front of house deals with.
Yep.
Back of house. Right. Exactly. Right. And that's a great element, because what is it? It's two different perspectives. Right. So if you're in that moment and somebody looks at you and is like, show up, give, right? And you're like, okay, I show up. I know nothing to talk about. I have no one to help. I don't have anything to give. What do I have to give? And you're talking about being a disruptive entrepreneur, right? How do you, I don't want to go in and like tick everybody off, because that's what we think disruption is.
Yep.
But it's not. And what I encourage you to do, if you are a Chris and you're a Christian and you can walk in a room, and I tell you, when they do, they light it up. You walk in a room and the room turns, literally the walls, like, whoa, what happened? Somebody just come in here, right? That's what happens. But if you aren't in that moment, if you're like me and you come in and you're like, who am I to be in this room? There's 4 things you have to do in order to truly generate leads. And it's something I teach. It's called a lead generation model. It's called a modern lead generation model, but it applies to life. And to build these connections, you have to first engage. That means you have to capture their interest, attention, and information. If you leave with just their interest and attention, but you don't have a way to keep that conversation going, it's not going to help you. You can show up all you want. If you leave alone, that's it, right? You're still leaving alone. So leave with something. The second element, you have to engage. Then you have to enroll. You have to create connection, have a conversation with them, a communication back and forth. And you have to build up that collaboration spirit. Think collaboratively. Don't think, what can I, it's not just about how can I give them, what solution can we create together? If I give somebody something, they'll remember me while they have it. But if we build something together, I'll be a part of their life forever, right? So you engage, enroll, then you have to equip. You have to, that's the giving part. You have to give something of yourself that will help them achieve that collaborative outcome that you just built. And then on the back end, the very last thing is you have to enable. You have to enable them to go do it. Champion them. If you want to be a champion in life, be an amazing champion of other people. And that's how you build network.
I have nothing else to say. So now you guys know why I hang out with these two, because they're just amazingly good in what they do. And you're not just amazingly good in what you do. You have this really innate ability to make it sound so simple. Because I just was like, okay, the 3 G's of leadership. Okay, I write all of that stuff down, and then I write his model. He talks so fast I couldn't even write it down. So because that alone was amazing. And then I'm sitting there. I was like, I need to be more like Clint. I need to remember some stuff, because I don't think I remember all that stuff you were just talking about. And for me, when I think of disruption, I think you guys are not just a disruptor in your industry. I think you guys disrupt how you look at your business, because every time I talk to you, Chris, you have something new. You call it Batman and Robin, and when I talk to you, and you guys integrate, for me, disruption in what you do. So our listeners, which don't have a 7-time 10x talk title, or somebody who doesn't have a multi 7-figure business, how do you break it down for them to start disruption, not just in their own career, but also in their business and their communities? Yeah. Yes.
I mean, 2 words: habits and whose. What habits are you cultivating in your life, right? What high achievement habits are you cultivating in your life? Look at it. Be real about it. What habits do you have right now? And if what you're living right now isn't who you're going to become, change a habit. It might only be 1, could be 10, but just start with 1. And then as you build those habits, find the who, which is what you're talking about here.
You nailed it with the high performing habits. And you mentioned it, but I want to really dig into this one. Some of us, probably not you guys, but me, some of us engage in not great habits. And so if you want to be disruptive, disrupt some of your habits, right? Let's figure out what are some of those habits that just might not be propelling you forward. And whatever they are, it's up to you. No one else has to know, but you can just jot a little list down. I can think of several right now that I know are big time consumers that are not really helping me grow my business, right?
One, in restaurants, the habit of not eating.
Yep.
In restaurants, you work from sun up to sun down. You go in there, you break it down, you give everybody else food, you feed it, and then you get scraps. That's what you do. The habit of valuing yourself. 5 minutes of intentional eating can change a day because it gives you a moment to reflect. Just the habit of nutrition, and not just in only eating this or only eating that, but just flat out start with eating, right? I mean, and I'm right here with you. I ate an omelet I fixed this morning at 6:15 for my wife. And well, I fixed it for me, but she split it with me. So I got half an omelet and I haven't eaten anything else today because I've been working, right? And I've been enjoying incredible company, right? But that's a habit because today's not the only day. So start with a habit. It doesn't have to be quit smoking, get better at life, dump this horrible person that's dragging me down, right? Those are all great things. What can you do today and tomorrow?
I absolutely love that.
Micro habits.
And for me, I wrote down on what you just said, Chris, I wrote down consistency. Be consistent, show up for yourself, be consistent. I think that's a great disruptor. And with you, Clint, it really reminded me, we don't do a good job taking care of the people, we should take care of others. And especially in the back of the house, I think we need to do more. And on my notes here, I kind of took it a little bit deeper, is not just taking care of them, showing up for them. And we talked about a little bit about that earlier, but be not just smarter when you support them, be more consistent, be intentional, if you want to call it. I also feel we need to do a better job in tracking progress and rewarding not just ourselves, also with them, and then adjust on that. So for me, when you guys talk every single time, I just sit and I make my notes. How can I relate this into my business, and how can we give back? And for me, the things you guys are talking about, and I hope the listeners, rewind back a few minutes, because there was a few amazing pieces and nuggets that the team just here dropped. This could become books. This could become workshops. These could become businesses just doing this one thing, and find a way of serving your customer better than anybody else can. And for me, I love what Gary Vaynerchuk said 2 days ago, that he feels his business and his brand has been commoditized because the way people consume content is a lot more micro, a lot more smaller and niche markets. And what you guys just said, for me, it's unbelievable. I can write a few more books, and call it thanks to Chris and thanks to Clint. But I want our listeners to know this is amazing information you guys just dropped, and just implementing one of them, you will have a whole different outcome tomorrow for yourself, for your career, for your business, and for your community. So I thank you for that. So I want to be respectful of your time. So talk to us a little bit. What are you up to? Where are you disrupting not just your industry, but your routine? First is for you, Chris, and then for Clint. Can you let our listeners look a little bit behind the curtain on how do you make that multi-million-dollar machine run? And you just became the CEO of that. How do you do that? You're just a single guy. And I have a follow-up question then for the both of you guys. But I'm curious how you guys disrupt for you, Chris, and what you do in your business. And then for Clint, it's kind of a disruption, because you said it earlier, disrupting yourself to look at things differently and step up and deliver in a different way. So Chris, what does disruption look like in your daily routine?
So if we're talking about my business, my business for the longest time was get up, get on plane, give opening keynote at 2-day sales conference for a client, get on plane, fly home. And I disrupted a little bit, thinking, okay, I'm going to do more than just a keynote. I'm going to get to know their business, right? So then I also noticed I could charge more when I started doing this customization. I would interview their top 3 salespeople, middle 3 salespeople, and bottom 3 salespeople. I would interview a very happy customer that usually the client told me about. And then I'd interview a really cranky customer that I'd have fine on my own, because the client wouldn't know they're going to sue them or whatever. I would then take all that information and I could craft a really customized talk, but really it was kind of consulting, and I didn't realize it at the time. Because instead of coming in and doing a, hey, I climbed a mountain once, you can too kind of speech, which is a lot of keynotes, right? This was really hyper customized for that audience. And I do all of this work for months and months leading up to it, do a 90-minute keynote. Oftentimes they would stand up at the end, which makes the guy feel good. We know we got to their heart, we got to them, and then I leave and it's over. And that's it. I've got this binder. I make a binder for every single engagement. I put reward if found on it. It's got all my notes in it. And this stuff just goes into a filing cabinet, disappears. So the disruption, my friend Christian, is it's happened enough times now where clients have me come in and do a keynote. And then they say, wow, my team, I mean, they really resonate with you. You seem to get them. You knew more about some of their businesses than they did. I mean, your level of research was just nuts. Never seen it before. And, they used to say, can you do coaching, or is there something else you can do? And I'd say, nope, see you later. Were you happy with my keynote? Loved it. All right, I'll never talk to you again. Bye-bye. That was my business for the longest time. And you laugh, but I used to be embarrassed. I'm not embarrassed to admit it anymore. That was my whole business. Bye-bye. You like what I did? Yes. I'll never call you again. Like, what are you doing, buddy? So, and it's happened quite a few times now where clients say, hey, can you do, and I just run and say, no, let's build a thing. So this disruption, long story short, Christian, has been finishing a keynote and then delving into like a full year-long program with their organization. So one example is a franchise organization. Rather than working with all of their franchisees, I'm working with their top, 11? Only their biggest producers, their highest volume franchise owners. And we're getting together for a 3-hour, we're calling it an executive roundtable. It's an elite council. So it's by invitation only, through volume and integrity and some other check boxes. And so we kick it off with this multi-hour roundtable once a quarter, and then 2 1-hour open office hours calls. The discussions that we're having with these business owners are incredible. And they're texting the master franchise saying, hey, when is that recording up? I want to listen to it again. So then we put it into our portal with video as well as an audio stream. So now they can re-listen to it in their vehicle. But this elite council that I'm now creating for clients based on one keynote speech, which then sort of opened up so much more knowledge in the organization. That's a stretch for me, man. That's a big disruption of the way I would execute my business. It used to be give speech, fly home. Now it's give speech, open up a deeper relationship, and really help them move the needle.
And I absolutely love that. So thank you for that. How about you, Clint?
One, you said in the beginning, you're like, one man. I am not. I learned years ago that true leadership, effective leadership, is not being the best at everything in your business. It's actually bringing out the best in everyone in your business. And so build quickly. Go in and build someone to fill the position. Build the position, build someone to fill the position. Never build for a person, always build for the position, right? So understanding how to do that is important. But the thing that's disrupting right now in our business, we have several different disruptions happening, right? So we have a primary coaching program that we have, couple hundred students in that. And that has been the main vein for a long time. Chris, you and I are in the same boat, right? Oh, I really need help in our business. Our business really, great. We open up next year, right? I literally have people email and it's like, how do I pay you money? I've literally had people email that, right? But what I realized is there's so much to be given. And it goes back to the give that you were
Mhm.
talking about. So in the disruption of our business, what I looked at is what actually needs to happen. It's not about running the perfect operations. It's about understanding what high achievement is. So in our business vein, we've created what we call the high achievement coaching program. And it's one-on-one coaching that takes people through the 12 habits of truly being a high achievement entrepreneur, not just a person. It's not life coaching. It's for entrepreneurs, right? That's the disruption in our business. And it's incredible. It's growing, it's building. I'm certifying coaches about the certification process. It's tremendous. But there's a disruption that so often we forget when we focus on business. Because we're like, I'm going to be a great entrepreneur, or I'm going to be this great entrepreneur, and I'm going to build this incredible life, but I will totally forget about my life. Hello, life, you're non-existent to me, right? So the disruption that I'm building in my life goes back to those habits that we talked about. And it really comes into understanding what it means to be present and influential. Remember, I said at the beginning, my dad always told me it's better to be influential than visible. Right?
Mhm.
Because if you're influential, you're influencing people's decisions. I want to be influential in my children's life, in my marriage, not just visible.
Yep.
So understanding what disruptions do I need to do? And that comes down to conversation. I'm disrupting my conversation and I'm not staying topical. How was your day? I'm disrupting that by saying, tell me more. Just that word, tell me more.
I absolutely love that. For our listeners in the industry, what I heard Christian say, if you have a restaurant today, don't serve him and leave and tell him goodbye. See you later. Wait for the next one. Go outside, serve him, leave him goodbye. What I heard Chris say is you guys need to build deeper relationships. Because for me, we have restaurants today, and where our business comes is repeat business. And if you build relationships with your clients, people vote with their feet. So Chris, really great way you broke it down. And for you, Clint, every time I hear you say that, if you are a restaurateur or anybody industry, how about building that training program for the position, not the person? And then not breaking it down. The way he talked about family is the way in our industry, we have, what is it now, 86% divorce rate in the hospitality industry, one of the highest divorce rates in any industry. And at the end of the day, kind of going back, and I love the way you talk about gifting, and the gifting is for you. But if you don't gift for yourself the gift of your time with your family, what are we doing it for? And I want to kind of spin it a little bit for the hospitality industry, because again, these two guys make it sound so easy. But the reason we bring individuals on, these two, because you can take what they just taught you and bring it into your business and have a total different outcome. And the other amazing thing about these conversations is what Chris just said. You can implement this tonight and have an impact tomorrow. What Clint just talked about, you can do this tonight with your staff, and when you go home with your family, have an impact tomorrow. And that's the power of bringing people like these two together. And I'm just, for me, we said we want to talk about 20 minutes. We're almost there. I think we had 45.
We're almost at 20.
Yeah. And Christian, you talk about networking and building a network. That can be as easy as clicking a button. You have an incredible community, right? You have an incredible community that people can join and be a part of and just have conversation, meet conversation. I'm not great in public. Wonderful. Get really good online and then translate that to public, right? Build that. So I love the community that you're building.
Thank you, because I'm a big believer we all creating conversation. The chair I'm sitting on, the computer I'm using, the desk I'm using. Somebody said, I think I should build this. And somebody else says, really, you want to build it? Why? I want to build it because it makes a better experience. And this is amazing. You should do this. And what I love when we have these conversations here, again, truth be told, we started 4.5 hours ago. I think we built already 6 businesses in what they can. Because when I hear Chris talk about things, I was like, I can support him with this. And he has this amazing resource, and we want to have it put in a book for him. And I want to do this for me because I love you, Chris. I will do this at no cost to you. And the same thing for you, Clint. I'm looking here, how can I serve you better? Because if you can make a bigger impact in the industry, and I can tie it back to what we do in the hospitality industry, is that whole saying, rising tide lifts all ships. And I honestly believe that. And what I love about both of you guys give very freely of your time. And I need to brag a little bit on Chris. Chris and I spent hours as we built this platform. Hey, what do you think? Not a single time he asked me for anything in return. And I finished my calls with him. Now, what can I do for you? And the same with Clint, as we built our first funnel, he spent hours with us on the funnel. And then he was saying, you know what? I have the same system. I just send you mine. You put your stuff in there. Yeah. Never ask for anything in return. And for me, I'm looking for ways to serve them because they amazingly gracious, the gift of your time and their resources. And for me, Sydney, it's very humbling to have you guys here because you guys never met in person, but some really dear friends, and I appreciate you guys being here with me today.
It's a privilege to be here. Can I share one final thought just as we close this out? Some people, myself included, don't know that it's okay for us to try a thing, right? So before I got it, I didn't know I could make a living as a speaker. I was in sales. I was a sales dude selling surgical equipment to, I don't know, 20,000 and $250,000 gizmos to neurosurgeons and general surgeons. And I love giving speeches. I did not know one could make a living doing this. And it took someone who sat me down and said, hey, I'm making a living as a speaker. It would appear to me that you love giving speeches. We're friends. You should probably do this. And I was like, shut up. You can do that for real. Yes, there's a whole industry, you big dummy. I didn't know that, right? So I see, Christian, I see your journey in the hospitality sector, and I hear, because I know so many of the stories of restaurant owners and chefs who say, well, is it for me? Like, is it possible to be a chef and to be bigger than a chef? Is it possible to grow a business given my skill set? And the answer is yes. I mean, the number of entrepreneurs that I've worked with in the last 20 years in this business, giving speeches in this consulting role, one of the things you need is tenacity. Chefs have tenacity, the ability to literally work in a hot environment, not just figuratively hot. So I want to, when we talk about the Disruptive Chef Show and the entrepreneurism behind being a chef and whether or not it's possible for you, I would say surround yourself with people like Christian who have already walked the path, for crying out loud. It was people like that before me who essentially were on this path, and they're like, they got their flashlight, right? It's, hey, careful, there's a rock. There it is. Yeah, don't walk, oh, okay, walk around the rock. Turn left. I want you to walk 100 yards, then turn right. Okay. And before me, and I think you'd agree, Clint, we have Christian Fisher who's done it. Man, he's done it. So if you're running a restaurant, whether you're a chef or a business owner, and you think, I wonder if there's more for me. And I don't know, from a mentorship perspective, I just think, Christian, you're a rock star, man.
I really appreciate it. Thank you. Very kind of you.
It is insane to me to think that years ago, as a young manager, I was introduced to your company, and I didn't know the amazing Chris Fisher back then. It was just lowly manager opening boxes, basically. But I was introduced, and man, I was so enthralled by your story. I was just watched your success. And then I remember when I met you for the first time, and I was like hitting my wife, and I was like, yes, I know that guy, right? And I'm like trying not to let it show. I'm like, yeah, sure. Really excited. Then you're just like an awesome person, right? You just become more and more incredible. And I'm like, darn it, couldn't he be horrible? Didn't he just no, he's awesome. So it's amazing what you're providing, because so many of us out there, especially in the hospitality industry, feel like that's all we got. All we got's the line. All I got's the line. And that's what you hope for. You hope to move up the line. But there's so much more to the line. And I would even challenge the people listening, build your own line. Don't mentally work someone else's line. You don't have to work someone else's line, even if you're physically on someone else's line. Set your own projection. Understand where you're going. What dish are you going to serve the world? And that's what you present up. And you, on a silver platter, you provide a way for them to literally get their creation to the world.
I really, you go both are very kind. You make me, feel really insignificant here and small. So it's really nice to hear. So thank you. It means the world to me. But before we wrap it up, if you guys haven't done so, to our listeners, make sure you go to chriscummins.com, check out what he does. And if you're ever in the need of a speaker for any of your events, make sure you go in there. There's nobody gooder, because anybody can do better. There's nobody gooder than the amazing Chris Cummins. So, and then also, if you haven't done so, you guys gotta follow what Clint and Jessica Nobles are up to with their home care ops business. Every time I snoop on their website, because we don't steal, we just take content and improve it. And because he thinks like a chef, I go on his website, I was like, shit, I should do it that way, because he just, he gave me the roadmap. And you guys should see what he does, not only the way he supports his industry. If you have anybody who has any interest in doing what he does, you guys need to check him out. He's amazingly good at it, and his wife Jessica is just top notch. And for me, every time I see them present and what they do, I need to get better, and I need to invest in better equipment. Maybe I need to get a makeup artist or something, because they not only look both amazing, they're also really good in what they do. So if you haven't done so, check out Clint and Home Care Ops. So any last words of advice before we wrap it up today? What do you have for our listener, Mr. Cummins?
Well, I think we go back to our earlier conversation. That is, be open to disrupting, right?
Mm-hmm.
Everything can be improved. Another thing I live by is don't be attached to anything. Don't hold on too tight to stuff, right? Too tightly. So if there's a thing that's working now and you're holding on really tightly, you might not be open to innovating it. Keynotes. I do keynotes. Let's go. But no, there's this whole other growth area where I can have more fun, a greater impact, higher revenue for my organization, and help more organizations more deeply, because I disrupted just giving speeches, right?
Awesome.
So yeah, be open to
awesome.
Not holding on so tight.
Thank you, Chris. And Chris knows what's coming last. That's why we have Clint next. So before we wrap it up today, Clint, we have rapid fire question. Chris has done the show before, so he knows the questions. So we have 3 questions for you, and try to answer it as quickly as you can, and yes, honestly as you can. So question number 1 is, if given the power to ban an ingredient forever, what is it and why?
Oregano. I think it's massively overused and overappreciated.
I did not
think
see
if you
that
add
coming.
oregano to something and people are like, whoa, lift the finger, right? That's amazing. It's Italian, right? Because it's got oregano in it. But good God, there's more to Italy than oregano.
There's a whole culture built on oregano. You just made, there's a lot of people very pissed off right now.
I did not see that coming. I'm not gonna lie. I didn't see that coming.
Question number 2, if giving the same power to ban a dish forever, what needs to go away tomorrow and why?
Fried catfish, because we were poor growing up, and you can take that much fish with that much breading and like feed a family, and I would just like to eat the fish. So just like grill me some fish. It'd be great.
That's amazing.
Tired of chicken necks.
And the final question is, what is a kitchen gadget which is way overrated?
Overrated.
Coffee grinder. Coffee grinder. It's way overrated. Everybody talks about use it for this, use it for grinding spices. You use it for anything.
For
There's
oregano.
100,000 things you can use. You can also use it for oregano, right?
And then put it on catfish.
And nobody ever uses it for coffee.
I think you should put
I've
catfish
never
in there
seen
too.
a kitchen that actually had a grind. We always had massive grind big machines for our coffee. Nobody uses a coffee grinder for coffee.
We appreciate your candidness here, even though you offended the whole nation.
Lovely nation, and it's delicious, but there's more to you than that.
Any closing words, Mr. Clint?
Cooler conversations in restaurants. Take them to the cooler, right? Yep. Have the conversation in the cooler. Everybody knows what that means. Chris, if you're not familiar with it, it's when you need to discipline somebody or just kind of get them out of their head for a minute. Take them to the cooler, away from everybody, right? When's the last time you had a cooler conversation with yourself and got yourself back on track? And I think the Disruptive Entrepreneur or the Disruptive Chef Entrepreneur Show here it's the way it's your cooler conversation. Get you back on track.
I love
that.
So
congratulations for doing it.
We appreciate you guys having here. I think we need to do a 2.0 of this conversation. So again, thanks for being here today. And to our listeners, until next time, remember to disrupt your kitchen, fire up your career, stay hungry for change. I'm Christian, the Disruptive Chef Entrepreneur host. I'm signing off. Thanks, Clint, for being here. Thanks, Chris, for being here. And to our listeners, be the change, be the challenger, be the chef who sets the world on fire. And if you haven't done so, go out there and stay disruptive.